Hey everybody, it's the Morning Culture with me, Frank Ski, JR, the one and only Jade Novah, and we have somebody really special with us. It's a new book from the New York Times bestselling author, DeVon Franklin. He is here. Listen, even Ebony Magazine says he is one of the 100 most influential African Americans around. Welcome to the show, my brother. Thank you for coming in this morning.
I appreciate it. It's always a blessing to be here, and I love the ATL. I got to come by V-103 when I'm here.
We've heard you say some controversial things in the past about relationship. Some of the things that make people go, "What? What did he just say?" But really, what's really fun is you come from a spiritual realm,
sure,
and now you're writing a book that everybody, even in the secular audience, can read. And the name of the book is Truth About Men.
Yes.
And what is the truth about men? What is it?
In a
nutshell.
In a nutshell. What'd you say?
Give us the tea.
Give us the tea. That's why you got to get the book if you want the full tea.
I got the book.
That's it. You know it.
So not the Baptist preacher.
Just
the short.
The tea.
The truth about men.
Yeah, the real truth about men is we don't know how to love. And if we learned how to love ourselves and love others, we would become the men we were created to be. Wow. That is the real truth about men.
Wow. All right. Now.
Frank, I want to know, as a man, how do you guys feel about that? Do you think it's difficult for you all to love? I'm curious.
It is. I didn't truly understand how to love until I went to counseling, and I understood about myself and about how I view love and why I view love that way. And when I took away all the false narratives in my life, I realized I became a different person.
Yeah, I think love is something that you develop over time. And I think especially in the Black community, it's not always expressed. It's not something that's, hey, I love you. We show it. And sometimes it's not always shown. So I think it's something that progresses, no?
Yeah, well, it does progress, but sometimes as men, what happens is when we don't know how to love, we give ourselves over to the enemy of love, which is lust. And I describe lust as a selfish impulse for personal, professional, financial, or sexual fulfillment by any means necessary, even if those means are detrimental. So what happens is that when we don't know how to love ourselves, we don't know how to love the woman in our life, we don't know how to love our family or our community, what happens is that lust starts to rule our decision making. So why do you see men step out of marriage or outside of their relationship? Why do you see men want money for money's sake or greed for greed's sake? It's because the selfishness is driving the decision making. And so for us as men, part of learning how to love is to get control over lust, and at the same time begin to practice. It's a process, but also put ourselves in the process, because sometimes we just say, well, you know what, this is just the way we are. I never had love as a model in my family, so we just say, well, we'll never figure it out. Whereas I say in the book, in order for us to be the men, we have to put ourselves in a process. We have to get discipline, self-control, learn to manage our urges, so that what we really care about, we lead with. Because sometimes we say we care about the woman in our life, but then we do the exact opposite. But when we really love her or we love our family, it means we're putting selflessness over selfishness. So it's a process, but we can't use the process to excuse behavior that works against our character and integrity.
And you use the metaphor, the dog, right?
Yeah,
you say that all men have this internal dog that they're battling with. Can you explain that for the people?
Sure. So, there's this this old adage, right? Men are dogs, right? So men are not dogs. And I addressed that in the first, chapter of the book. But what I say is that I use the metaphor that lust operates like a dog. So I use lust to describe the dog, and I use love to describe the master. And so I use this to articulate the challenge, but also to show us how we can love. If you've ever had an untrained dog, no matter how much you may like it, right? If it's not trained, it's a nuisance to itself and everybody else it comes in contact with. Why? Because it wants pleasure for pleasure's sake, right? It only wants its needs met at the expense of everybody else's needs. It's destructive, right? So for us as men, when we don't master the dog within, when we don't lead with love, we can become destructive because we only put our needs first. And so you look at, especially in a dating sense, think about, even when I was dating, even though I was waiting at times, I wasn't the best dater at times. Why? Because I didn't always have the woman I was dating and her needs above mine. Meaning, I would just say, hey, the more the better.
That's so many, honest.
and we buy into that. And then it's like you go from thinking of a woman as a woman to an object for your pleasure. And you know what? I don't want to see you tonight, so I'm not going to hit you up. I'm not going to even tell you that I'm going to go see somebody else tonight, right? So as men, it's about how do we get integrity and character back? How do we lead with intention? How do we lead with truth? Even if we are not in a mode, let's say in a dating sense, where we're not serious, why don't we honest about that? instead of manipulating and leading women on, and then we leave them, don't think about them, but they live with that pain for the rest of their life. So this book is all about how to get mastery, how to learn how to love, how to lead with love, because when we do that, that's where our power is.
Yeah, it sounds like honesty is the theme, and I think that's
Without
so
a doubt.
beautiful. Yeah.
Without a doubt.
JR?
Yeah, so is this book more towards men to better understand themselves, or is it more for women to try to better understand men?
Both. And this is why I wrote the book for both of us, because we can't do our work independent of the other. We're all in this together. Now, here's what's critical, and I get this all the time. So many women want to do the work for the man or master the man's dog. You cannot do that.
Right.
It's up to us as men.
No, they want to train the dog.
They want to train it. That's right. That's right. They want to dictate. You know, sit here, do this. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Go to the bathroom.
That's right.
now.
No. There's a difference between managing and mandating, right? And some women just want to mandate, right? But no, every man has to make the decision to do their work. That I have to make the decision to be the best man I can be. Now, if I'm smart, I'll involve a woman in the process. So, you know, me allowing my wife into the process to help me has been amazing. And as a result, you know, I help her as well. So it's a situation where it's a two-way street. This book is for men and women. Why? Because as men, we don't always understand ourselves. We don't always know how to love. Most men deal with brokenness. When we were raised, you know, we were taught all men fit in this box. Don't cry. Be strong. Make money. You know, get women.
Hypermasculinity.
There you go. And when we don't fit the box, most of the time we are met with violence. Stop crying. What's wrong with you? Stop being a wimp. So what do we learn? We learn to suppress. We learn to not communicate. We learn to do whatever we have to do to survive. What does that mean? It means we suppress. And when we suppress, it's hard to express. So this book is about us as men saying, hey, I've been struggling. I'm really hurt. I have pain. How do I deal with that? And for women, how do you better understand us? Because some women are never going to deal with men that don't want to do our work. Let's just be honest. So no matter how much I put in information in this book, no matter how much we as men decide we're going to do our work, some women are going to deal with men who will not do their work. I don't want women to feel powerless and helpless in that situation. This information will give you tips and tools to identify who you're dealing with so you can better navigate those dealings with men.
So let me ask you this. So some of the things that you've said have made you a star for women. One of those things was before you got married, you're going to abstain from having sex.
Yes.
And you became hugely popular by that statement because most of us men, we don't understand that. We think, okay, once you become my girlfriend, we're going to have sex.
Yeah.
Why was that so important for you?
You know, it was important for me for two reasons. One, growing up, I was raised, in a community of faith, and, my faith is important to me. And so as part of that community of faith, we were taught, wait until marriage. Now, I didn't wait until marriage. So, I was telling people I was waiting, but I wasn't waiting. And what was happening for me is that there was no peace because I was saying one thing and doing another. And so it got to the place after years of not waiting. And when I got out of college, I finally decided I need peace. So for me, I made the decision, a personal decision, that I was going to wait until marriage after I got out of college because I really wanted to hold on to my peace. And that's what I did until Megan and I got married. But the other reason was discipline. Because as men, we are not taught to get discipline, especially in this area of sex. So what happens? We build this appetite, right? We take whatever we can get. And then all of a sudden we think magically we get married and say, I do. And our appetite goes away. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work that way. And so for me personally, I said, listen, if I can get discipline in this area, I believe there's nothing I can't do in life. And so it was a personal decision. And in this book, what I say is, I said, listen, I understand that my decision to wait is uncommon. And I know that most people, men or women, are not going to do it. What I suggest is two things. One, if you are going to wait until marriage, at least wait until you're in a committed, loving relationship where there's trust. Because so often sex is given without trust. I was at Facebook a few weeks ago and we were doing a lecture, and one of the women in the audience asked a question, and I said this. I said, okay, so if you as a woman, after a month of dating a guy, would you give him the code to your phone? And they said, no, of course not. And then I said, okay, now listen, I'm not getting in your business, but in your history, in that same month, have you already given him your body? And if you have given him your body but not given the code to your phone, it indicates there's not really trust there. My recommendation, at least wait till there's trust, till you love this person, till you're committed, and then you can explore that the way you want to explore it. The other thing I say to men is this. I'm not going to get into the debate about whether sex is a want or a need. We'll be here all day. But in terms of managing our want for sex, think of it as a want instead of a need. Why is that important? Anything we need, we can justify our behavior to get it. I need water, I need food, I need money. Anything we want, we're accustomed to not getting our wants met. Oh, well, I want a piece of cake. Well, I don't have to have it. If we think of sex as a want, it helps us manage the desire for sex. So it's like, okay, yeah, I may want it, but you know what? Now's not the time for it.
So let me ask you this, because I know she's biting at the bit. She's got something to say.
Yeah, I have a question.
So in that same line, between a want and a need.
Sure.
I get it. So right now I could say, you're right.
Yes.
Sex is a want, it's not a need. But when I'm with the woman I love and we're kissing and tongue kissing and our bodies are touching,
Come on, tongue kiss.
then it becomes like a need. Like my body is like,
Your body
I
reacts.
go through convulsions. Man.
Yeah.
I can't handle it,
It
bro.
feels innate.
How you deal with
as
that,
a
bro?
married man, all systems go.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're in that situation, but here is why what you're saying is so important, because there are some listening right now that are not married.
Yeah.
And this is why it's so important for men as men to get disciplined. Why? Because just because as men we get into that situation with a woman, let's say you're in a dating sense, just because you're in that situation doesn't mean that she wants to go all the way. So as men, even though we may get turned on and aroused, we can't just say, that means I gotta go, I gotta have it. Because then what happens? Why do we find so many men who end up doing things that are outside of their character and their nature, especially with women they profess to like or love, because they don't know how to handle those moments? So it's so important to still bring discretion, discipline into that moment. And yes, it's difficult, but if she says no, hey, I'm not ready, then you got to say as a man, okay, all right, you know what? Let me get out of here for a minute, because
Let me go take a shower.
let me go take a shower. Let me go get a cold something, right? Because so often we are not taught as men to put the brakes on. And I think that's really important in order to protect our women and to protect ourselves.
So I have a question for you, because you speak about suppression. You're saying that because of hypermasculinity, that men have to suppress their emotional side, and that kind of creates that dog inside of you. So what's the difference between suppressing emotion and the detriment that has versus suppressing your want for sex?
Okay, great. So I talk about this in the book. So my advice is to never suppress the want for sex.
Okay.
Always be aware of it.
Okay.
Embrace it. You know, so I spend a lot of time in the book dealing with urge management. The quality of our life will ultimately become the urges we manage. End of story. And how we manage those urges, period. So a lot of times, you know, we're taught, oh, act like you ain't got an urge. No, you're good. Especially if you come from a community of faith. You know, it's like, oh, no. But I say the opposite. Embrace it. Feel it. Man, yo, I'm feeling this right now. And then I also have a chapter called Create a Safe Space. Why? Because you got to have people you can talk to. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to call your boy and say, yo, dude, you ain't gonna believe this, man. Yo, I just need to tell you, man, because when you have that outlet, it sometimes allows the urge to go away. Suppressed urges persist, but when we acknowledge the urge, it actually helps it go away. The other thing, as I say, in terms of you deal with the urge, do a 10 count. Sometimes when you have an urge, you immediately want to go into action. So if I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat whatever's in front of me. Take a 10 count. Create space between the feeling and the action. Why? Because that'll help us make a better choice. So I definitely don't believe in suppression, even when you're managing these urges. It's not easy. It's a hard thing to do. But when we acknowledge it, we can get power over it instead of it getting power over us.
One of the other controversial things you said leads into that, and that is most men will think, okay, if I'm in this situation with this woman that I really like and I'm really feeling and I'm really want it, but I gotta stop, then they're gonna go to masturbation. And you've said that's not a cool thing.
Well, what I've said in this book, and I also said in The Weight, you know, when you look at spiritually, there is no byline or directive relative in the Bible to masturbation, right? We've searched the text, we've searched the scriptures. So what I say is you have to manage it. And what does that mean? It means that can be a slippery slope to feed the dog. You know, when I talk about the dog and the master, I say there's two different types of food. One type of food is soul food, that's virtue. The other type of food is dog food, that's vice. And we just have to be careful and manage the vice. So what I say in this book, and we also said in The Weight, is that everyone has to wrestle with this issue for themselves. So that's why it's so important to not just do it mindlessly, but to really think about, what is this doing? Where is this taking you? And does this help you become the man or the woman you really want to be? Or is it really something that's taking you away from where you would like to be?
Yeah, we talked about it, so go ahead.
How does that tie into relationships and pornography, or when you're actually in a relationship? Do you view that as something separate once you guys are in a committed marriage or relationship?
Yeah, listen, I'm not going to judge anyone's relationship. When anybody wants to do that is between two consenting adults, that is absolutely 1,000% their business. When I was on a previous show and they asked me that question, what I said is I define pornography, I put it in the category of dog food. I put it in the category of vice, because what happens when you look at these images, first of all, it's not real. It is completely manufactured. Now, my day job is I make movies. So I live in the world of making content that when you see it on the screen, it looks like, oh, wow, how'd you do that? I just did a movie where a kid had to fall through a frozen lake. And so we had to recreate that. And there was a whole lot of money and time spent to recreating that moment. But it's not real. The danger when you bring pornography into a relationship or even a marriage is you are feeding you're feeding yourself images that are not real. I had the pleasure of interviewing Terry Crews and his wife for my Truth Talk show on Instagram, and he talked about the dangers of pornography and what it did to his marriage and how it borderline destroyed his marriage, because he went from looking at women as people to objects. And he basically described, pornography as a date rape kit. Why? He said because the moment a woman says no in pornography, the man persists and it ultimately becomes yes. So you begin to train men to think that no doesn't really mean no. No just means keep trying harder and you'll get a yes. So this is why I say any couple, you got to just think twice about it. Again, I'm not going to get in your business. I'm not going to tell you what to and what not to do. All I'm going to say is think twice about it. I do think it's a category that really can take us down a slippery slope, and we want the best health for our relationship. We want to practice love. And I think it's important to consume things that will lead us there.
Go ahead.
You spoke about love. There's also the theme, and I don't know if you can tie pornography into lust, but there seems to be a theme of lust versus love when you're in a committed relationship. Do you view those as two things that can coexist, or it's one or the other while you're in a relationship?
No. This is the hard truth. Every man and every woman, even though this book, I don't really focus on the lust in women. I mention it, but I didn't want to write a book about what women need to do better. I wanted to write a book about we as men have to do better. So I didn't talk a whole lot about the lust in women, even though I mention it. For men, lust and love is in us every single day, every moment of the day, and both war with each other every day. This is why it's so important to feed the love in us so that it's strong enough to manage the lust in us. When the lust is strong, the love sometimes can be weak. And then why do we act out of our character? Why do we do things that we even say, well, why did I do that? Why did I just say that? Because sometimes that love is not as strong. We haven't fed it enough. So it can't actually handle the battle with lust. So it's within us. Whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you're in a relationship, that love and lust war with one another. And we as men have to make the decision who's going to win the battle.
And you said about women? The difference?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Oh, yeah.
Do women have a dog in them?
Well, yes, you do.
In your opinion?
Yes, you do. And again, I didn't go too deep on that in the book because I didn't want the focus of the book to get deterred. Because sometimes when we as men say we got to do our work, our first thing says, well, what about women? Well, no. What about the person that looks back in the mirror? The only person I can control is me. And I wanted to make sure that this book was focused on that. However, I do touch on it. And what's been amazing is that so many women that have already read this book have said, DeVon, you've given us 2 for 1, which is, even though you're talking about, this love and lust in men, as women say, yes, me too. They're like, we relate to this.
Right.
And they're saying, you're helping me navigate this battle because most women have the battle. And they're also getting information about men that they didn't already know. So women that are reading the book are saying, whoa, this is taking me to another level.
Spiritually, going back to the spiritual side, you hear these tones that money is not the sin, but the lust for money is the sin. Like having money is not a sin, but the lust and letting that having money take control is the sin. So in the same vein, isn't it these things that you've pointed out that could be the dog? It's a matter of controlling them. Not that they're necessarily out of order, but don't let them control your life.
Well, when you talk about, greed, when you talk about the desire to have more for more's sake, whether that's related to women, whether that's related to sex, whether that's related to power, whether that's related to success, yes, to a degree, what you're saying is correct, that, we have to manage our desire for those things. Do we all want to be successful? Sure. Do we all want to have, a certain financial stability? Without a doubt. But when we start to do things that work against our character and our integrity to have those things, that's when I say it's a danger zone. And sometimes the line between what is integral and what's not can be very, very thin. This is why we have to always check our intention. Why am I doing this? Why am I going after this? Is this really love leading me, or is this really lust leading me? Is this really mastery, or is this really the dog in me? We have to always be in touch with that, because sometimes we can justify actions of the dog because we think, oh, no, that's the master. No, I need this. No. Sometimes that's just the lust in us wanting it, not necessarily the love in us needing it. So it's important to be in touch, and I put a lot of tips and tools in the book to help identify those things within us.
Real quick, I have a son who's a first-year freshman at LSU.
Oh, right on.
Nina, our producer, has a son who's a first-year freshman at Georgia.
Right on.
When they graduate this year, my twins are both going to college. These are all boys.
Wow.
What advice would you give to young boys who are leaving the house where they've got the structure, the control, the parental overseeing, to now you have the freedom, and now we're sticking you into this college environment where nobody is watching you?
Yes.
What would you say if it was your son?
Yeah, if it was my son, I would say freedom is important with boundaries. That what happens is when you get out there and you don't think anybody's watching, there can be a tendency to say, well, I'm going to do whatever it is I wanted to do when everybody was watching. But no, the decisions you make now lay the foundation of the future you want or don't want later. Even in this college life, when I was in college, the first time I was away from home and the first time I had a chance to just hang out. But what I realized was, even then I had to make the decision, who do I want to be? What type of man do I want to be? What type of person do I want to be? And so that meant sacrifice. There were some times everybody else in the dorm would go party. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go do that tonight. Why? I got to study. There were times when I was like, you know what? I want to make it in entertainment. So I had a full class load, and I had an internship working for Will Smith, which was unpaid at one of my freshman year. And I had a job working at the Hillel Jewish Center. Why? Because I knew where I wanted to be, and I wasn't going to allow a moment to pass without working towards that. So I would say to someone, your children, your Nina children, have fun, enjoy college, but do it with integrity. Do it with character, and decide where do you want to go. And college is the best time to make the decision to get there. Because sometimes you think of college, it's just time to party, party, party. There have been people that party the 4 years away. They spend all this money to get out, and they have nothing to show for it. I would encourage them not to be that. And I would say, as a young man, don't buy into the false idea of manhood. Your manhood is not defined by how many women you sleep with in college. Your manhood is not defined by being a player. Your manhood is defined by commitments. Commit well. And if you aren't willing to commit, be honest about that. And let people know what's going on instead of manipulating and lying and then thinking, it's all good. Well, no. As men, our integrity is not what we do in the public, it's what we do at home. And I would say some of those things to encourage them to have the best college experience they could.
Any last minute thoughts, Jade?
No, I think the theme of honesty, if no matter what you take from it, I think it's beautiful. Honesty, integrity, it should be a theme that we all live by, whether we're in a relationship or not. So I appreciate that so much.
JR?
Man, you came up here and told the truth.
Honesty.
That's why I just want to cover that book, The Truth About Men. You told the truth, man. I commend you for that.
Thank you, Jay.
All right, everybody, listen, this is the book right here. DeVon Franklin, the name of the book, The Truth About Men. You're with the Morning Culture and the People's Station. DeVon Franklin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you when you come back to Atlanta, right?
Yeah, I can't
wait. With
wait.
a movie coming, we're
That's right,
looking forward to it. People's Station, we're V-103.